Good evening, candidates and guests. Can you hear me well? Okay. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Butte County, welcome to our candidate forums for California State Assembly District 3, Chico Area Recreation and Park District in United States Representative District 1. I'm Margaret, Swick, President of the League of Women Voters. We are very pleased to be able to host this forum in this new Marsh multi-purpose room. It's a treat for us to be here tonight, and it's wonderful to work with BCAC TV and their team. And a video of this forum will be on our website in a few days, and it will be broadcast on Channel 11 Public Access TV. I believe it was
Saturday, Sunday, 7.
Saturday and Sunday at 7. Thank you.
No problem.
The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose political candidates. We work to encourage informed voting and civic engagement and to build participation in the democratic process. We believe that it is an honor to serve in public office. We thank each candidate for being willing to run for office because we know it is challenging, and we thank each candidate for being willing to serve the public. The League of Women Voters always welcomes new members. If you support civility in politics, support the in-depth examination of issues, support advocacy following consensus building, if you want to seek positive solutions to public policy issues, and you are 16 years or older, then the League might be just right for you. We do not discriminate on race, age, religion, sexual orientation, or political party. You will find League information on the table, just right over here with the red tablecloth. Thanks to our question screeners, Mary Coda, Rose Kelly, Mark Coda, Janet Taylor, and Lynn Hansen. And thanks to our timers, Nancy Hansen and Sandy Boyd. Our forum coordinator is Rose Kelly. Thank you most of all, Rose. Our moderators tonight are Haley Allen and Claire Greene. We are particularly pleased to have David Little from the Enterprise Record and Meredith Cooper of the Chico News and Review. They will participate with the League and the public in the process of asking questions. And we have paper if you would like to submit a question, and we will be going around collecting your questions throughout the evening. Please silence your cell phones. We ask that you hold all applause until the close of our forum. No portion of this forum may be recorded for campaign purposes. Our forums are issue-oriented, and we ask that there be no personal attacks, either in a question or in response to a question. And now, our moderators.
Good evening. My name is Haley Allen, co-moderator of this forum. My co-moderator is Claire Greene. Assisting us this evening are two timekeepers. They are holding indicators marked with 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and a red stop sign. Please abide by the time limitations so that the evening moves along smoothly. Candidates, please let me know if you cannot see the time cards. The question screeners will sort the questions from the audience into topics, trying to avoid duplications and screen for personal insults. Tonight there will be 3 forums. The first will be for the candidates of the California State Assembly District 3 office, followed by the candidates for Chico Area Recreation and Park District, informally referred to as CARD, and finishing with the candidates for the U.S. Representative District 1. There will be a short break between the forums to allow for video and audio changes and to give us all a chance to stretch. We start tonight with our forum for California State Assembly District 3. There are 80 assembly districts in the state of California, and District 3 represents 469,000 people. It covers parts of Butte and Colusa counties, and all of Glenn, Sutter, Tehama, and Yuba counties. The salary for this position is a little over $100,000. The candidates for this position are James Gallagher, the Republican candidate, and Edward Ritchie, the Democratic candidate. The candidates have drawn for order of opening and closing statements prior to beginning this forum. and are seated in the order of the opening draw. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for an opening statement, 2 minutes to respond to questions, and finish the evening with a 1-minute closing statement. Each question will be answered by each of the candidates. Because this forum is a nonpartisan setting for voters to hear all positions, any demonstrations of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions will be out of order. Any question directed at individual candidates will be discarded because the questions must be posed to all candidates. Our time with the candidates will be approximately 45 minutes. We will stop candidate questions after approximately 40 minutes in order to leave time for closing statements. At the end of this forum, we will thank all of our candidates with our applause. Please hold your applause until that time. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Ritchie, for being here tonight. We will begin with the opening statement from Mr. Gallagher, followed by the opening statement from Mr. Ritchie. Mr. Gallagher, please proceed with your opening statement.
All right, thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum and having this opportunity to engage. My name is James Gallagher, and I've been your representative in the State Assembly for the past 2 years, just finishing up my first term. And I also want to introduce a special person who is very involved in that as well. My wife, Jana, is with us tonight and been critical support to me and could not do this job without her. And also with a dedicated staff of people who help me in representing you each and every day. I'm proud of what we've done in my first term. Had the opportunity to open up 2 offices, 2 district offices, one in Chico, one in UBC, to be more engaged. Held several community coffees with constituents where I had opportunity to get input so I can do my job better. I passed through 9 bills this year that were signed by the governor. Even though I'm a Republican, I'm a minority in the Assembly, we were able to get that through, including bills that help build water storage in this state, expand career technical education, and protect our agriculture industry. I want to continue to fight for that on water, public safety, keeping our communities safe, and improving the job climate here in the state. I'd be proud to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Ritchie, you may proceed with your opening statement.
Hi, good evening, and thank you, everyone. And I'd also like to thank the very special person in my life, Maggie. Thank you for being with me here tonight. And my name is Edward Ritchie. I'm in this race because the last several decades in District 3, we've had the same style of representation. I believe it's time to try something different and send a Democrat to the State Assembly that can work within the majority. I have a proven record of success in bringing people together, finding solutions at work, and getting the job done. The last 10 years, I've been a representative in 7 Northern California counties that almost mirror our Assembly district. I've gotten to know quite a few people there within the business community, within the government communities, and I think I'm well prepared to be your representative in the California Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Now for our first question from the audience. What is your position on building the Sites Reservoir? For the responses, we'll start with Mr. Gallagher.
It's the most critical infrastructure project in the state. I've been very engaged on getting Sites Reservoir built. With the passage of Proposition 1 in 2014, we now have $2.7 billion that are available for building water storage in the state. I've been in front of the Water Commission, who's the 9-member board that's responsible for allocating those funds. I've been in front of them consistently, arguing that we have to put that money into real brick-and-mortar infrastructure projects to increase our water storage, Sites Reservoir. I mentioned I helped usher through a bipartisan measure. I authored the bill, but I had Democratic co-authors on the bill, AB 2551, which allows these water storage projects to be built using alternative delivery. That means those projects will be built faster and at better cost to taxpayers. It's proven it's worked in transportation projects and other public works projects. So I've been very much engaged on it. We need to get this project done. Not just for those of us sitting here in this room, but for the next generation. We know that water is the lifeblood of this state. It provides the lifeblood to our farms that produces the food that all of us consume. It provides drinking water, safe drinking water to people. Do you know that during this drought, we had a community, East Porterville in the Central Valley, that ran out of water. No water when the tap was turned on. That's completely unacceptable. We're the richest state and the most prosperous country in the world, and that's third world conditions. And one of the biggest problems, and the reasons why, is because we have not invested in water infrastructure in the state since Orville Dam. And that's a huge failure. The leadership that's been in power there has not made the investment in that critical infrastructure. But I'm going to continue to push hard. I've already gotten results by getting AB 2551 passed, by effectively arguing to change regulations in the Water Commission to get these projects off the ground. And I will continue to be an effective voice. And under my leadership, we will get Sykes Reservoir built.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie.
I have been working on Sykes Reservoir also for many years. I'm proud to say that I was vice president of the Mid-Valley Building Trades, and we lobbied in Sacramento for Sykes Reservoir, the inclusion of good apprentice language within the bills that were put forward. You're not going to find a lot of difference between me and James in Sykes Reservoir. I have been a long-time advocate of Sykes Reservoir. In fact, there was 3 reservoirs that were planned there at one time. If you go back to Wilson administration, he had a reconnaissance survey that they did where there was actually a reservoir planned there called the Calusa Reservoir that was 3 million acre-foot reservoir. And one of the benefits of that reservoir, although it's a natural valley there at Sykes, it was the most storage for the least amount of structure to be built. It's been a great format for off-channel water storage, and it will definitely benefit our environment and give us the added water to work on environmental issues and protect a lot of different things here in the North State. And I'm proud to say that I've also lobbied for many years for Sykes Reservoir.
Thank you. For our next question, we will turn to Mr. Little from the Chico Enterprise Record, and we'll be starting our responses with Mr. Ritchie.
Well, let's stay on that water topic. So if we do build this Sykes Reservoir and get water down to the east border belts of the world, there's an issue of how you get it through the delta without damaging the delta. Jerry Brown's solution, of course, is to build twin tunnels under the delta. He will come ask the legislature to contribute billions of dollars to that project. Where do you stand on that project?
I do not support the tunnels as they are currently planned today. I think that the Bay Delta Conservancy Plan needs work. It's not finished yet. The size of the tunnels and the draw on the delta, I don't believe in the science that has been proposed, and it's a really short, easy answer for me. I do not support the delta tunnels.
I completely oppose any peripheral tunnel project that is being proposed out there. It really is presenting us with a false choice. What it's saying is that we have to have the tunnels in order to solve the delta problems and the environmental problems, and it's just simply not true. The reason that we're having this is because of radical environmentalists who have somehow managed to make the smelt a bigger issue than East Porterville and people who are going without water, with farms that went out, I think it was 170,000 acres that went fallow during the drought. Those are jobs that we lost, because of this drought. When we say that the smelt, which is really a false choice, this is a fish, if you will, that can be replenished. It's also not native. So we can deal with that problem. And here's the other thing. Let's say we built the tunnels. Don't you think there'll be some other issue? So we spend billions to build tunnels. Then there'll be some other issue about, now this tunnel is a problem for some other species. Then we spent billions of dollars to have the same problem all over again. So to me, it's a false choice. What we need is additional water storage, And Sites Reservoir is one of those. Temperance Flat is another project in the Central Valley. They can provide much needed water down there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be transfers from north to south. We can store more water down in the Central Valley and provide for their needs as well. And we need to diligently and relentlessly fight for our water rights. That's the big issue. Ensuring that we have constitutional protections for our North State water rights. That's paramount. And they're consistently trying to undermine those things in the state legislature. I've been very vocal and present at all of those debates to protect our water rights, and we've been successful at doing so. We'll continue to do that.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll turn to Ms. Cooper from the Chico News and Review, and we'll start our responses with Mr. Gallagher.
I'm curious if there are any groups that you will not accept donations from.
I can't really think off the top of my head of certain groups that I would absolutely not take money from. I try to keep myself open. I have an open door in my office. To anybody who wants to come and talk to me, it's not about money or donations. I want to hear from everybody and hear what their input is and what what they have to say. And then I'm going to make the decision ultimately that I think is best for the district, the constituents in Assembly District 3. But also for this state. Now, I get support from a lot of different people, and I'm proud of the many small donations that I've gotten from constituents throughout this district who just believe in what I'm trying to do. And so, I don't know if that completely answers what you're looking for, but I'm looking for support, and I'm looking to work with groups throughout this district. And I think my record has shown that I've done that, and we're going to continue to do so.
Same question. I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't know, I haven't had a lot of offers for money. No, that's right. So, campaign finance and the money in campaigns today is astronomical. It's completely out of hand. And I do realize that incumbency buys you a lot, and people get behind incumbents. There's reasons for that. I was completely surprised that it cost me $8,215 to put my name in the voter guides in 6 counties. I have funded a great deal of my own campaign. I'm by no means live up to my last name of Ritchie. But I'm in this for all the right reasons. I'm passionate about what I would like to do at the state assembly, and I certainly would follow the law and check with my professional treasurer when somebody made donations to me to make sure that I was breaking the law, or was not breaking the law. But it is so incredibly expensive. I don't know how we can hold candidates to some kind of a bar when they have a job to do, get done, and their job may to be either get elected or get reelected. I'm sure that there is somebody out there that I would not take money from. I'm sure I could find somebody.
Thank you. Our next question will be a leak question. Governor Brown has proposed changes in the justice system regarding sentencing and treatment of juvenile offenders. Are you in favor of these changes or not, and why? And we will start with Mr. Gallagher. Oh, sorry, Mr. Ritchie. Sorry.
Now, there are so many propositions on the ballot today. That number may escape me of the proposition you're speaking of. So remind me of that number. That is proposition, yes, I thought so, 57. It's very important. And some of the realignment that we've gone through so far already since 2011 has affected our public safety to an extent that I think we need to absorb the rest of what's happened through realignment before we move forward again with further restorative justice. I do not support that bill, that proposition, to change juvenile criminal sentencing as it stands today. I think we have the laws in place that we need. I think that the prosecutors or judges do a good job sending juvenile offenders to court, and that we should stick with what we have today before we move ahead with more restorative justice and try to find further funding to support our police and public safety on that measure. Thank you.
I'm 100% opposed to Proposition 57. I think it is the complete wrong approach. And I would encourage you as voters who are listening here tonight, if there's one big issue that's out there on the ballot, I would urge you to vote no on Prop 57. And here's why it's deceptive, is the governor and also the attorney general would have you believe that this ends determinative sentencing, not just for juveniles, but for adults as well, ends determinative sentencing for non-serious offenses. And I would ask you, because this includes these kind of crimes, rape of an unconscious person is considered a non-serious crime under this proposition. I would argue that any rape is a serious crime, and no, we should not change the determinative sentence for someone. They need to pay the price for what they've done to someone else, someone they've victimized, that will for the rest of their life be forever changed. And so that's why Prop 57 is a terrible measure. And it's just in line with what the governor has already done with realignment that puts more felons in your local communities. With Prop 47, which made a bunch of felonies misdemeanors, and now there's no stick for people to say, you need to stop committing crimes. They know they won't even serve a day in jail. They'll get out on a citation because we cannot continue down this road. But I'm not here just to say no. I have my own way of how we should deal with this situation. We do have overcrowded prisons. We have to deal with restorative justice. But here's the deal. Here's what we should do. Number one, dangerous criminals need to stay behind bars. They cannot be allowed to go back out in the community and victimize people and continue to steal and do all these things that we're seeing in our own communities right now. And then we need to find those populations that can be rehabilitated. And we need to work with our local nonprofits and people who are working to restore people, get them back into a productive lifestyle. Get them into job training. If you have a job, you're not going to commit crimes. If you have a legacy, you're not going to commit crimes. We need to work on that.
Thank you. Next, we turn to an audience question. What is your view on climate change and what actions might you take to address it? Mr. Gallagher.
Well, I believe that what we do need to seriously address greenhouse gas emissions. We need to reduce greenhouse gases. Where I differ with what's been going on in California is we've done it in such a way as we have impoverished the people of the state. Did you know, there's a recent study that just came out, that 1/3 of California's population, 1/3, technically lives in poverty when you take into account our cost of living, the cost of gas, the cost of electricity. We pay 44% more for electricity in this state than any other state in the United States right now. Why is that? Because of our greenhouse gas policies, our top-down, arbitrary greenhouse gas policies that are implemented not by elected officials, by the way. They're implemented by the California Air Resources Board, who have put people who have good trucking jobs out of business, who have made it so that we have less manufacturing jobs. We are now last in the country in manufacturing jobs created. We're doing some great things in Oroville with increasing our manufacturing base in other parts of the district, but we're really hamstrung. We had a glass plant that wanted to come into Oroville. Could not come in because of the Air Resources Board, the credits that they would have to buy, millions of dollars of credits in order to get in here. We're doing it the wrong way. We can invest in all types of alternative fuels, not just pure electric, but natural gas and other forms, other alternative fuels that help reduce emissions. We can do this in a way that helps people. That helps people keep their jobs and be able to progress and move up, creates jobs. We're going the wrong way. The way we've done it has meant less jobs for Californians. It's meant higher costs for people, and it's harder to get ahead. So we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but we're doing it the wrong way, and we have a better way that we can do it, and I'm committed to work on alternatives.
Please repeat the question.
So the audience question is, what is your view on climate change and what actions might you take to address it?
Prop 32 and the carbon emissions controls of greenhouse gases has not been all bad for the state of California. It's spurred innovation. It has cleaned up our air. We oftentimes have a choice between believing fear or believing science and truth. Our greenhouse gases need to be controlled in this state. We've made leaps and bounds. It's not easy to be a leader. That's what we are in California. Now, I do not agree with every aspect, and it has been hard on business. But if we don't protect our environment, there's nothing else left. We need to work on our environment when we can. And we need to put the interest of business at the same level with our environmental interests. One should not be ahead of the other. We should find ways to find solutions, make plans that work, and get that job done. We have a chore, and that is to protect this environment for our perpetuity. Not everything within Prop 32 has been a bad thing, and it's not easy to be the leader. Governor Brown has been a leader in this, and many people in the state legislature, and I hope that through negotiation and the process that we continue to be leaders in the state of California when it comes to environmental concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll turn to Ms. Cooper in the Chico News and Review, and for the responses, we'll start with Mr. Ritchie.
So I'm curious if both of you support your presidential candidate and why?
Wow, I better temper myself here. Do I support my presidential candidate? Yes.
Well, your party's presidential candidate.
And my party is a Democratic Party, and I do support our presidential candidate. And I want to sum it up real quick. Today you see a man running for president that is showing you his best side. And when he gets elected president, he will move further to the extreme side. It's his character trait. You see a woman, Hillary Clinton, running for president that is trying to show you her more liberal side because she believes that's her base. After Hillary is elected, she will be moving to the middle in her policies. That has been her history, and that is one of the reasons I support Hillary Clinton, because I think that she will govern from the middle and not from the fringe.
Well, before we get there, I want to take 1 second to go back to our topic we were discussing, and I'll relate it to what the question is, when we talk about leading the world in carbon emissions reductions, you can't be a leader that no one's following. And here's the thing, with AB 32, we've committed to reducing greenhouse emissions to 1990 levels by 2020. We've almost accomplished that. But it didn't come without great cost to jobs and economic opportunities. And now we're talking at the federal level with a presidential candidate who's talking about greening the grid and going all to renewable resources instead of fossil fuels. What that means is higher costs for all of you on your electrical costs, higher cost of living, even higher than we've gone. And now we're doubling down on a policy in California. It was already hard to do. And what have the other states done? Nothing. And what did they get China to do? Oh, we're going to peak out. We're going to peak out at our levels. They still haven't done anything. So Californians are feeling the burn of a crazy energy policy. Yes, I support my presidential candidate. You want to know why? Because he's going against an establishment in this country. An establishment that supports big government and big business. You know, that has continually, in my mind, hurt the consumer, hurt people. They make deals, whether it's big government or big business. They make deals that are good for them, but it's not good for the middle class, for the working class, for the people who are trying to make it in this country. And somebody's finally standing up to him. I don't necessarily agree with everything that my presidential candidate says, but that's a big thing that he's doing. Is taking on this establishment. I think a lot of people see it, and I think they see that Hillary Clinton is never going to stand up to that establishment. She's bought and paid for by Wall Street. Look at who's donating to her campaign, and she's going to stand up to him. Okay, we'll see about that. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll turn to Mr. Little from Chico Enterprise Record, and we will start responses with Mr. Gallagher.
So more and more local municipalities are turning to special sales taxes for public safety and bonds for building schools because they say the state is deficient in that area. Can the state do more? Should the state do more? Can the state afford it?
Can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
That's all right. Municipalities are turning their local sales taxes for public safety and local bonds for building schools because the state isn't doing enough in that area. Should the state do more?
Absolutely, the state should be doing more infrastructure. Probably the best example we can talk about right now is roads and transportation infrastructure. Did you know that in our last budget we had $8 billion more dollars? $8 billion more dollars that was collected throughout the state from all of you, from all of our taxpayers, and not a single dime of it, not a single dime of that increase went to roads and transportation. And yet, the party in power there will tell you, well, we just got to raise taxes. We got to raise your gas tax, your diesel tax, the fee that you pay when you register your vehicle to pay for it. We have the money. We've also collected we were talking about AB 32. We also created cap and trade, which is a tax on all these businesses throughout the state, and that you pay at the gas pump. You actually pay 11 cents more per gallon because of cap and trade. It goes into $2 billion are in this fund now. Not a dime of it going to your roads. Can we do a whole lot more on infrastructure? Yes, we can. We need to invest in our water infrastructure as well, as I talked about water storage. The problem is not that we don't have enough money. It's that we're not spending it in the right way. Education, infrastructure, public safety. That's where our dollars should be going. And make sure you do those things right. And when you've done those right, then you can talk about other things. But let's make sure we do those things right. So that's what I've been advocating. I'm very proud that as part of my caucus, we came up with a plan to fund road infrastructure, transportation infrastructure in the state without raising a single tax. We found the money in the existing dollars in the existing budget. We proposed that. And you know what we got out of the Democratic majority in Sacramento? Crickets. They didn't even respond to it. Well, we're going to continue to do it, and with you, the voters, and the consumers, holding them accountable, we can make sure that we get a real plan that helps invest, that the state invests so that we're not passing the buck to the local governments and saying, you guys raise taxes on your people to do it. The state should be doing this work.
I'll refer back to James' response to the prior question for just 1 minute, or for part of my time. And I wanted to thank James for talking about taking on the establishment, because that's what I'm doing. And believe me, it's no easy job. And I am not a career politician, so I want to thank James for that plug for me for taking on the establishment, because that is what I'm doing. We have done the same thing in this district for 40 years. So, on your question, on the question at hand, bad tax policy. You cannot call yourself a fiscal conservative and think you can cut yourself out of everything. A true fiscal conservative would have never cut taxes and would have paid our debt off. Today, our debt service on the general fund is killing us. We keep talking about tax policy, and I hate paying taxes as much as the next guy. But because of bad tax policy, we now have many municipalities seeking funds that they need for basic services and passing their own tax initiatives. We have to do something that is not extreme on either one side or the other. That is what I have practiced in my career, bringing people together, finding solutions that work, and getting the job done. We cannot cut ourselves out of the fiscal problems that we are in today. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will be a lead question. Do you support or oppose Proposition 64 on the legalization of adult use of cannabis, marijuana, for non-medical purposes? Please explain why. We'll start with Mr. Ritchie.
No, I do not support the recreational use of marijuana. There are too many loopholes that are going to be taken advantage of as the proposition is written. Believe me, there will be commercials on primetime television, no matter the limits that they put on advertising. There will still, our children during primetime television viewing hours will see advertisements for marijuana-related products that look like they come from a candy store. Again, legislation written from one side. We are too partisan. We need to work together, form legislation that works for everyone. Prop 64 is a bad proposition. I would urge everyone to vote no on. Thank you.
Yes, I am completely opposed to Prop 64. I don't think we should legalize marijuana in the state. I don't think that's going to help with the societal problems that we see in the state, with the real public safety issues that I talked about earlier that we're having. And the bottom line is, you know, a lot of people think about marijuana, they go, hey, that seems harmless. It really isn't. And I think, you know, what you see is that a lot of times when we're dealing with people who, you know, run afoul of the criminal system, people that are homeless, people with mental health issues, a lot of times substance abuse is a big part of that. So making it easier and, you know, to access and potentially having our youth get access to drugs earlier in time, that's not a good policy, okay? And I just don't think that that is going to be something that's going to be an overall benefit to the state of California. But just kind of going back to something that Ed said, because he told you that he's running against the establishment, and yet he just told you in his opening remarks he wants to go down there so he can go along with the Democratic majority. They are the establishment in California. They're the ones who have led to you having the highest taxes in the nation. They're the ones that have led to you paying the highest for energy costs in the nation. They're the ones that have not invested in Sites Reservoir, in water infrastructure, that have failed to invest in our roads and waste your money on all kinds of crazy things. Okay? So if he's running against the establishment and telling you he's going to make Sacramento work for you, well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go along with that. I'm fighting against the establishment in California, because that establishment has left us poor. It's left us not ready to face the challenges that our state faces, and we could do a whole lot better. And I'm going to keep working to change the face of California so we can get back to being the golden state instead of being the broke state.
Thank you. In order to adjourn on time, this will be our last question. It will be a lead question. Homelessness is an increasing problem in many areas. How can the state help local authorities in dealing with this problem? And we'll start with Mr. Gallagher.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. Homelessness is an increasing problem in many areas. How can the state help local authorities in dealing with this problem?
Well, one, there are some great groups that are working locally on this issue. Right here in Chico, we have Stairways. There's a great Mike Medeiros who's working very diligently out there, trying to help get people off the street, get them into resources. Hope House, you know, Lori Maloney has been very, very involved. And I've met with a lot of these people and I've talked to them about the issues. And, you know, I think what it really boils down to is what we need is, it's not just housing. Because you can give somebody a place to live, and if they still continue in the behaviors and the things that they're in, they're never going to get out of that cycle of poverty, that cycle of homelessness. What we need is resources to help people. Housing, but then also, hey, how do you treat substance abuse? You got to treat mental illness, because mental illness is a huge part of that. Now, this year in the legislature, we did come up with a proposal and we worked together to pass something that I think will help. It was not something I was, 100% happy with, because what it does is it takes money from the millionaire's tax that you might know of, that was called MHSA funds, and puts that into providing housing for homeless. That provides a much needed pot of money, I think, that will help us do projects here locally, where we can get housing projects off the ground. But what's going to have to come along with that is the resources to do the wraparound services. I know in Marysville, they did a creative new project where they went out and got a bunch of tiny houses, basically, and put them together. And also with that, they're going to have mental health people reaching out there and providing housing for homeless, bringing them in, but then getting them provided with the resources so they can get out. It's going to take partnerships. The state needs to help provide the resources, and this is one way to do it. I believe that will also be on the ballot this year, so that's something you can look at. But it also means partnering with the people who are already doing the great work. It's a little bit of both.
This year, there was $1.8 billion grants made available through Kevin DeLeon's No Place Like Home. And I believe that one way to help local municipalities within this district is that our assembly offices should almost work as mentors for grant writing. And we could change some of the rules so that grants go to the places with the most need and not on a first-come, first-served basis. There are quite a few ideas on there how to touch some of the most needy areas within the state of California, and those are some of them. There is plenty of funding available, but $1.8 billion sounds like a lot of money, but if you look at the 400 cities in California, you can divide that out and maybe something like $30 million each. The numbers are so large at the budget level, and there's so much need in the state of California. I wish that they would change some of the opportunities to get that funding by need, not first come, where some of the localities actually have the resources to have professional grant writers on staff or higher.
Thank you both for your thoughtful answers. It is now time for your closing statements. We will start with Mr. Ritchie and then Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Ritchie, you may begin your 1-minute closing statement.
There are a lot of good things that are happening at the state level in California today. Don't believe all the fear or bad tales of woe that we hear all the time. They're just meant to divide us on the way we vote. There are a lot of good things that happen in the state of California. The rainy day fund that we have been putting to counter our up and down flows. Prop 98, where we have guaranteed 40% funding to our schools. I have worked for 10 years in 7 counties here in Northern California as a representative to many people. I've represented the interests of business, local communities, and working families. I know how to bring people together, find solutions at work, and make real change and bring that home to this Assembly District for you. I'd be very honored to receive your vote for Assembly District 3. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Mr. Gallagher for your closing statement.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming tonight and listening to all that's been said here tonight to get more informed about voting. the trust that you've given me to act as your representative is something I take very seriously. And I'm honored to be able to represent you in Sacramento, to have spent the last 2 years working with you, talking with you, getting your input, and then going and working for you down in Sacramento. And I think we've done a pretty good job. And for one, we have worked across the aisle. We've found solutions. Like I said, 9 bills that I've had signed by the governor, bills that are going to help build new water storage in the state, bills that expand career technical education that we know is going to help our youth get into a job, bills that protect our agricultural industry. I've worked across the aisle, I've found ways to work, but what I will not do is not allow the status quo to continue in Sacramento, because it's bad for all of us. Because it's keeping people from realizing their dreams and keeping people from moving forward and keeping people from realizing the California dream. And I will continue to be a fighter for you against that status quo. And together, if you give me additional time, we are going to turn this state around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Butte County, I want to thank the candidates, Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Ritchie, for participating in our forum this evening. The audience may now applaud.
Thank you, everyone. We have now arrived at the forum for the Chico Area Recreation and Park District, commonly called CARD. CARD operates as an independent special district. It was created in 1948. It is the steward for all recreational opportunities in our community. Board members are elected to 4-year terms. The salary, $25 for each ad hoc meeting. With us this evening are the 4 candidates seeking a seat on the board of the Chico Area Recreation and Park District. There are 2 seats available. The candidates are Dave Donnan, Jerry Hughes, Tom Lando, and Michael Worley. The candidates drew numbers to see who would go first for the opening statement, and they are seated in that order. There will be a 1-minute opening statement, 1-minute responses to questions, and 1 minute for closing statements. We will begin with the opening statement from Mr. Worley.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a big thank you to the League for recognizing the importance of CARD and having the candidates here tonight to talk about our mission, talk about what we do, talk about our importance to the community, because I think over the years, CARD has sort of been that agency that just sort of was in the background. People weren't exactly sure exactly what we did, what we do, and also how important the things that we oversee are to the community. Everybody's really busy with what's up with city council or the county, and fail to realize, just what a big impact we have on the community. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, and before you start, your name card has fallen down. If you would prop it up, please. Thank you very much.
And I'm here this evening to share with you my reason for wanting to serve once again on the CARD Board of Directors. I have had 40 plus years of Parks and Recreation administrative and experience, and I think that my experience would be a good thing to have if I'm on the CARD Board of Directors again. Part of that experience, however, had to do with being the general manager for the Chico Area Recreation Park for 19 years, and also served on the CARD Board of Directors from 2008 to 2012, so I think that type of experience would stand good for being on the Board of Directors, and I appreciate the opportunity of being here this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Donnan.
My name is Dave Donnan, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having the Recreation District. All these guys up here have all been on the board before. I haven't. But I'm a participant in all the CARD programs, from taking my children to Camp Chedaka, to my grandchildren to Camp Chedaka. I play softball out on the fields. I use the park. I do everything, and I think a new, fresh attitude can come in to take it to the next level. CARD does a great job with a lot of after-school programs, the elderly programs, lots of different things. They do a lot of things with the parks, but I think it needs to go to another level. Our facilities need an upgrade, and one of the most important things is the income that we bring in at $7.6 million. We spend $5.3 million on salaries and benefits. I'd like to see some changes in that. We're spending way too much money on that. Thank you.
Mr. Lando.
Well, I want to thank the League as well. I've had the privilege of serving on CARD for the last 4 years. I believe that with Michael Worley, we've made some great strides. Ann Golden's out here. We've hired a great management staff. CARD, I think, has very strong personnel. We've managed to maintain a balanced budget. We've managed to maintain our pension obligations. And CARD, working with the other agencies, the university, the college, the city, the county, is part of the fabric of the community, and it's our job to make sure recreational facilities are provided. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now for our first question. This is from the League. What activities do you note are missing from CARD's current programming? How do you suggest financing for new programs be arranged? For the responses, we'll start with Mr. Worley and then move from left to right.
Well, one of the new, actually, it's kind of a traditional but yet non-traditional recreational activity is gardening. As we all know, the English traditionally had gardens and viewed that very much as a recreational activity. Locally, we're starting to see community gardens spring up, and these are very important because a lot of people live in rental housing. You maybe want to improve the area where you live, but if you live in a rental space, you'll be moving on after a while, and then you'll just have to start all over again. Well, if we provide space for garden activities in various CARD facilities, and we have some vacant areas that could be used, and we also are under a mandate to reduce ornamental turf. And the difference between, let's say, sports fields and ornamental turf is that ornamental turf is just grass that was planted there to kind of fill in the landscaping. And you know, with our drought, turf soaks up a lot of water. So if you're able to make some of these areas available for individuals in the community to set up little garden plots, and we have some right on the edge of some of our facilities, like out at Oakway Park, though I have to say that that's actually city land because there's a fire station supposed to go there. And then also across the street, however, the city has set that aside for us to do an aquatic center at some point. But incorporating, you know, something like that, and these are very low-cost operations because, you know, it doesn't require any kind of oversight or anything like that.
Could you repeat the question, please?
What activities do you note are missing from CARD's current programming, and how do you suggest financing for new programs be arranged?
CARD over the years has provided various programs for a variety of ages. When I first came to Chico in 1972, the senior citizen program was conducted at Melody Hall, which no longer exists. When I arrived in 1972, we were operating out of offices on Lando Avenue. And one of the first charges that the board of directors gave to me was, what are we going to do about providing opportunities at something other than out of the office? And a major effort, because the board had acquired some property on Valambrosia Avenue across from the post office, and so we developed some plans, and the board of directors and charged me with checking on some people who could help us develop a community center. And in 1975, we dedicated the community center on Valambrosia Way, and that was one of the big efforts that we did in conjunction with the board of directors.
I think I remember what you said. I think CARD has plenty of programs right now. Seeing any additional programs right now, I don't really see anymore. If you've looked at the CARD booklet, there is programs for everybody. I mean, whether you're disabled, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether it's dancing, whether it's crocheting, whatever it is, they have programs for it. I think they do an excellent job at that right now. I think what needs to happen is the public needs to know more about what CARD does. I don't think that I want to say the advertising or the getting the word out to everybody that these programs are available. Most of the money that CARD makes is from the participation, the people that bring in their money to pay for those different programs. Obviously, if there's not enough interest in it, they won't have that program. So all the programs that are there, people are funding those things now. The majority, not the majority of the money comes from the taxpayers. I just feel that, again, when people go to these different venues that they go to, I really think that the facilities they just have to be upgraded. They have to be nicer. Thank you.
The desired activities of our community change. They change on a yearly basis. We have folks, now we have a pump track, and people are talking about bocce ball, and we're talking about a dog park. We've talked about other passive activities, and obviously we've also talked about the big one, I guess, which is the aquatic center, which I swim like a rock, but I very much support. In terms of financing, most of these, except the aquatic center, can be financed through either nonprofits or people doing the activity. I also believe our job is to facilitate recreation, not necessarily provide it. So if they're nonprofits or private providers, I think that's a very positive thing.
Thank you. This next question is from the audience. How can we control and protect our parks from vandalism and drug consumption? And we will start with Mr. Lando.
That is a tough question. It's obviously a tough question in our community, period. There have been a lot of efforts and discussions, including having people go through the park on a fairly consistent basis, obviously working with the city, and in some cases talking about surveillance cameras. If any of you have the answer, we'd love to know it. It is a serious problem, and it is a serious cost to our entire community. I don't have an answer beyond that.
Mr. Worley?
Yes. Vandalism, drug use, and there's other things that happen there also sometimes, are things that happen throughout our community. Obviously, parks being open spaces are kind of an attractive spot for that. We do contract for private security, so if we were to have some kind of moderate sort of trouble, we have ways of dealing with it. But like everybody else in this community, we're really dependent upon the police department or the sheriff's department to provide, because part of our area is out of the city limits, to provide law enforcement. That's one thing even though special districts have police departments, that's one thing we're not into. We don't do that. And so, much like fire protection, we're dependent on other agencies.
Mr. Hughes.
One of the things I found out with regard to vandalism over the years is that the more that we provide programs and get people using the facilities, the less we have in the way of vandalism. If people are utilizing a park and using a facility, and they sometimes are our best people to help to not eliminate vandalism, but to minimize the vandalism in our facilities. And over the years, I found that to be the best. Let's have people in the facilities, using the facilities, and they'll be helpful in minimizing vandalism.
I think one of the important things is every building that CARD has should have a security system where there's cameras at it, cameras on each one of those facilities, and work with some of the programs that are at the school district. Schools get broke into all the time, but CARD and the school district also have a working relationship that some funding from the school district and from CARD to be able to fund that. The other thing is you know, we already have a police force that's pretty well taxed as it is, but you know, you as the community members are the best form of deterrent that we have. Most people have cell phones. When you see something going on, a phone call to let somebody know right away is probably the best deterrent that you have.
Thank you. We will now move to questions from the press, and we will begin with Mr. Little from the Chico Enterprise Record, and for responses, we will start with Mr. Doman.
So last year, CARD closed Shapiro Pool for public use. Consultants estimated that renovating the pool would cost about $2.5 million. The designs for the proposed aquatic center the CARD looked at were $9.5 million to $12.5 million. How do you feel about a new aquatic center versus renovating Shapiro Pool?
Well, as the guy that started the recycling here in Chico, I'd rather see the Shapiro Pool revamped. I think the aquatic center really just focuses on the people that are using the pool, and a lot of the teams. There are plenty of pools around town by the different, whether it's In Motion, Chico Sports Club, you have private, a pool over there south of town. I'm not for the aquatic center. I'm more for a bigger picture, a regional park that would have an aquatic center as well as soccer fields, softball, and others.
Thank you. Mr. Lando?
We certainly discussed over and over again the issue of Shapiro Pool, and I actually think that CARD missed the bet in terms of establishing a maintenance fund. Shapiro Pool should never happen in our community, in any of our facilities. We ought to have funds set aside for continuous maintenance. Having said that, I am very much in favor of an aquatic center. I would love to see one built. I'd love to see both senior and competitive swimming, community swimming. The question is, what can we afford? And it may come down to ultimately rebuilding Shapiro or expanding the pool.
Thank you. Mr. Worley?
Some of the big ticket capital items are obviously going to be for the voters to decide, because realistically, CARD can't build something like an aquatic center without voter buy-in. Myself, I prefer, if we were to do that, to go that way, would be to do bonds, much like the way we build our schools and a lot of our other public facilities, where we get an up and down vote from the voters. Shapiro Pool has been around for a long time. People who made the original operating agreement, I think, met it late at night before any of us were born to get together and decide how it was going to be run. Part of the problem is with the renovation that makes it tricky, the fact that it's located on school property and is actually a CUSD asset. That brings in the Office of the State Architect, adds a lot of complexity, and anytime in government you have complexity, you've got cost. My, shall we say, view would be that we should try to do both. But like I said, a lot of it would be up to the voters, and they would have the final call.
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Mr. Hughes.
Pleasant Valley Pool and Shapiro Pool were designed and built in the 1950s, 1960s, and they both lived out their usefulness. I'm a strong supporter of an aquatic center for Chico, and one of the things that I try to emphasize is it's not CARD's facility, it's the community's facility. And one of the locations where it could be built would be right here across the street from Marsh Jr. High School and used in the finish. What we need is partnership and developing a strong program to present to the community to get their support. That's a big challenge because you need 66 2/3 vote, but I think if we really put our mind to it, we can get that done.
Thank you. We will now have a question from Ms. Cooper of the Chico News and Review, and for responses we will start with Mr. Hughes.
CARD has been criticized for providing unfair competition by a private Chico business that operates soccer programs with a unique model. CARD began offering the same unique program but at a cheaper rate. Something the business says has hurt its bottom line. Is it fair for a tax-subsidized organization to undercut private business?
Mr. Hughes.
I think when you have a agency like CARD, and it has to take into consideration how it relates to the private enterprise. Unfortunately, in this particular situation, I think that both entities have an opportunity to provide the type of soccer that you're talking about without necessarily interfering with each other. We have to get together and work together in order to accommodate both options, but we need both in this community. Thank you.
Mr. Darling.
I am for CARD working with these other organizations. CARD already does that. They use a lot of these other public facilities to do different programs. The school district is one. Just because you're a private business, they're trying to make money, their costs are higher. The same thing happens with the people that play in these sports. Not only are they taxpayers, they're paying once, but they're paying again when they come to participate in those programs. I think that there could be a deal worked out with CARD and indoor soccer or any of the other organizations to share in those facilities and come to find a fair way to be able to, both people can make a profit at it.
Actually, I need to start out by clarifying that CARD did stop providing indoor soccer opportunities when this issue came up. However, I think, as you know, I did vote in support of off-the-wall soccer. I do think it's important for the district to provide recreational opportunities, but as I said before, that doesn't mean that we actually physically have to provide them. If they're provided in the community by a nonprofit or a private activity, we should support that to the extent we can.
Government isn't in the spot where we try to put other people, out of business, especially if they're a viable and going concern. The deal with the indoor versus the outdoor soccer, which is what CARD offers, is that it's a little bit of apples and oranges. Indoor soccer, much like arena football, is played on a special type of field on AstroTurf, while outdoor soccer, even though it has the same number of people, is played outdoors on grass. As I pointed out at the meeting, we don't guarantee that the field is going to be available to you because of weather conditions. It's looking like we're going to actually have a good rain year. Now granted, we haven't in the last 4 or 5 years, but if our fields are rained out for several weeks, I mean, that's just it. So if you want to play for sure, play indoors, sign up with them.
Thank you. This next question is from the audience. CARD does a number of classes and other things for senior citizens at Lakeside. However, they could offer many more. Why don't they utilize the location with many more classes? And what would you do about it? And the responses will start with Mr. Worley.
Okay, I'm going to have you read that question again because I want to make sure that I'm answering it properly.
I will repeat the question. CARD does a number of classes and other things for senior citizens at Lakeside. However, they could offer many more. Why don't they utilize the location with many more classes? What would you do about it?
Okay. As we know, a lot of how many classes are offered have to do with funding. Now, I'm assuming this question is why don't we offer more classes at Lakeside? But it could also be read as why don't we offer similar classes at other locations, both of which are valid points. To the extent that we have funding, we try to offer a maximum senior class level. Obviously, if you live in one part of town and the class you want is on the other side of town, I can see why you would want to have a class closer to you. We can't always do that. And scheduling and efficient use of public funds requires that we have the classes at the places where we can in order to maximize efficiency. We'd like more funding. Should have asked the guys before us to get us more funding, and we'll put on many more classes.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes. Yes.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. CARD does a number of classes and other things for senior citizens at Lakeside. However, they could offer many more. Why don't they utilize the location with many more classes? What would you do about it?
One of the reasons that we acquired Lakeside Pavilion was to provide more opportunities for seniors. So when you have the facilities that are available, then you can offer the programs. And that's one of the reasons that the Board of Directors at the present time are reassessing their master plan to determine what facilities are needed in the community. But we do also provide programs at the center on the Mountain Erosion. So I'm not exactly sure where that question comes from. When we are providing a considerable number of senior programs at this time.
Mr. Donald.
I think that when it comes to the senior programs, and that question specifically, if the seniors get together and there's an information in there, all you have to do is call CARD. I'm not a director, I don't work for CARD, but I would think that if you wanted more programs, that if you started sending in a suggestion and got more people together, and that's where I feel that getting the word out to the seniors, I think all of us up here, except for Mr. Worley's a senior, is if you got that information and saying, hey, these are available, please get back to us. I think the communication between CARD and seniors and other people lacks a lot of, it just lacks communication. We just need to hear more from the senior citizens and what do you want? And then CARD can develop that program saying, okay, we've got 20 people that want to do this. And I think that that's the way to take care of it.
And I think Dave really stole my answer. That's pretty much what I was going to say, that Ann and Jennifer in the audience, and they would pursue any ideas brought forward There's obviously an issue of cost, although usually that can be overcome. If anybody wants a class, they ought to contact the district, and the idea will be explored. We're always looking for new opportunities.
Thank you. This next question is from the audience, and for responses we will start with Mr. Lando. Did you know that Sycamore Pool is not being cleaned weekly during the summers? Do you think this is okay for lifeguards and Chico citizens?
1 Mile Pool is a community tradition. It's also a community headache. I think the city does a great job maintaining the facility, but as we all know, their resources have been extremely limited. Yes, I would prefer to see it cleaned once a week. However, it is safe, and it is safe for our lifeguards. And right now, it is one of our main facilities.
Mr. Worley.
I think this is one of the most common misconceptions about CARD. I was surprised. The very first complaint I ever got about CARD's operation actually had to do with 1 Mile, and I was forced to refer them to the city because someone at the city said that the 1 Mile area would be closed down during the week, right after the 4th of July, and I had to assure this person, well, it's nothing to do, CARD doesn't really have anything to do with that situation. Since then, we've worked with the city because after all, we're in the lifeguard business. So to hire lifeguards to make sure that 1 Mile can stay open. We do also demand that they test it on a regular basis, so we do know that it's safe. If it was not safe, of course, we'd pull our lifeguards, and the community would know about it. I think people just need to realize that CARD, while we do a lot of recreational stuff, we run a lot of parks, we do not really have much except for certain special areas in the little park.
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Mr. Hughes.
Basically, the answer has been given, really, that the facility at 1 Mile is not a CARD facility to operate. As all I've said so far, however, CARD does work with the city and has for the last 2 or 3 years. And first of all, training the lifeguards there that are there during the summer. And then in this last year, as I recall, CARD actually took over the responsibility of having lifeguards. So all that indicates is we need to continue to work with other agencies in the community to provide park and recreation facilities for our constituents.
Mr. Donovan.
I think we forget that it's a creek that runs through there. And they put concrete around the creek. And when you mean safety, do you mean safety for the people that are there, the lifeguards? I think the lifeguards do a great job out there. And again, as the other 3 gentlemen have said, you know, it's a city park. The city owns a lot of the land, and they have a working relationship with CARD about maintaining it. I think that the city and CARD are doing a good job of trying to get that, to make sure it's safe out there.
Thank you. We will now move to questions from the press. We will begin with Ms. Cooper from the Chico News and Review, and our responses will begin with Mr. Donovan.
So assuming, well, let's say the aquatic center moves forward, do you believe that it should be paid for by Chicoans, or should it be funded through private sector donations?
Well, since I'm not for the aquatic center, as it has been presented, I am for a larger facility, a regional park that has been brought to the board of directors. And I think that if you're going to put a facility in that's going to be paid, just like the San Francisco Giants, they have AT&T. I think it becomes a public-private partnership to be able to do these. In fact, Mr. Lando was the city manager when I was the head of the soccer leagues when Wildwood Park went in. And there was something that the league, the Chico Cal Soccer League, helped put some money into that. Not a lot, but we were there to help. Most of our parks are dual purpose. I think having a regional park that takes care of softball, soccer, aquatic center. There's lots of land south of town that can look into that. I think more people would look into not just a bond, but public-private. If it's, say, a softball field, you have a local team or a company put their name on it, and they help pay for that. I think it could be found out that way.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Mr. Lando.
Again, I favor the aquatic center. I do not believe that it can be entirely privately funded. I do hope that user fees in a private partnership, as was just indicated, are developed. I do agree with Michael that if we want to pursue it, we're going to have to ask the voters if they want to pursue it. And I think it's a fair question for anything in our community. If the voters want it, they can vote. And yes, it will cost some money. And if they say it's not worth it, then they'll vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Worley.
It's up to the board to come up with something like the aquatic center, because that's what's known as a big ticket item. It's up to the board to come up with a feasible plan that would work, and it would pay for itself, and it would pay for the maintenance, it would pay for the upkeep, everything that would work out. And then we would ask for public buy-in via your vote for a bond issue, because that's a big deal. Now, there's talk of this park to the south of town. I gander that that's the one that they're talking about that's way on the other side of the creek in an area that's actually outside the urban limits of the city. I don't think that works for most people who live in town. Part of what we do is we want to present recreational opportunities that are not only available but close to where people live.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes.
We spent about 18 months analyzing this particular issue. And a lot of things came out of that study, including a good design for a community. And I keep trying to share with people that this isn't a card facility, this isn't a City of Chico facility or a school district facility, it's a community facility. And the community will have to get behind this if we're going to ultimately have one. It's going to be up to the board of directors to as just said, determine how we can get its community to accept such an event. And as I said earlier, we already have one location pretty much laid out, which is across the street from Marsh Jr. High School. There may be other options.
Thank you. And now we'll move to Mr. Little, and our responses will begin with Mr. Hughes.
So CARD is going to be reviewing its master plan. Assuming you've read the master plan, what projects would you advocate throwing out, and what projects would you advocate adding to the master plan?
Mr. Hughes.
Well, actually, that's what the process is to determine. It's for the board and the community to reassess the master plan, which originally was adopted in 2008, and to determine what assessment is necessary to answer the question. We can't answer it here tonight because that's the process that the board is about to head into right now. But we do need to reassess the master plan that was done in 2008 because things have changed.
Mr. Donovan.
Since I'm not on the board and I'm not one of the directors, one of the things as an outside individual and a participant is, again, I think the master plan, instead of adding more things on it like an aquatic center or as we're looking into that, I think setting aside money, and Tom made a point of this, is a maintenance fund. Our fields and all our facilities have been overused and not kept up on a maintenance schedule. We really need to set aside money that we have. Part of the problem in politics is people are tired of their tax money being spent in the wrong places. So the money that's being collected, I think we need to build our facilities and make them what we have better. It's reusing what we have already. Whether it be Shapiro Pool and fixing that until such time, whether it be the softball fields, 20th Street Park, the finishing of DeGarmo, there's a park over on Alamo. I mean, we have a lot of these things that haven't even been completed yet. So I think setting aside that money in a master plan would be money well spent.
Thank you, Mr. Lando.
I was a major proponent, and have been since I've been on the board, to revisit the master plan. It is drafted in such a way that it's beyond visionary. For example, it calls for 3 ice skating rinks in Chico. It calls for a very large number of tennis courts. I do agree that we need community input in terms of what the plan actually looks like, but I also think we need a realistic plan, particularly if we're going to go to the voters. And I think that's part of what Michael's talked about, that we have to frame this up so it's lean and mean, so the voters trust what we're doing and agree with our priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worley.
The master plan actually predates the 2008 housing crash. So that right on its face means it needs to be redone and relooked at. One of the problems we've had in this community, and I was a member of the General Plan Advisory Committee that helped put the city's general plan together, and one of the things I was always concerned was that they were using way too high growth percentage per year of population increase. I can remember back in the 80s when by the year 2001 we were supposed to have like 325,000 people in Chico and 500,000 people in the county. Needless to say, we're a ways away from that. We need to always look at these plans as not what some consultant thinks, but what we, the community, really need to do. That's why we're going to have a community-wide process to put this together.
Thank you. In order to leave time for closing statements and to adjourn on time, this will be the last question. This is a question from the League. When the Brown Act is followed, it ensures the public that there is transparency in local government agencies' decisions. What would you do in a meeting if the discussions slipped into a violation of the Brown Act? We will start with Mr. Worley.
Well, you stop immediately. I think you have to have a good grasp of what the Brown Act is. And the Brown Act is basically that everything that's going to be acted upon is agendized. And things that are going to be talked about are known in advance, and that there's no secret information and then also that directors haven't gotten together ahead of time and sort of pre-played what they're going to do on certain agenda items. Every deliberation, every consideration is supposed to be made in the public field. Where I think Brown violations happen, unless you're being kind of sneaky, is unfortunately people get to talking about stuff and they ramble off the agenda. And that's why it's important that the chair be very much in control and put a stop if they think we're getting out of bounds.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes.
As I said earlier, I had 19 years experience with working with boards of directors at CARD. One of the things that I insisted upon and that the board that I worked for insisted upon is we had total information regarding the Brown Act. And as far as I can determine, because I've stayed very closely in touch with the current board of directors and those that they too had total transparency as far as I can determine. So I don't really know what the issue might be if the person who initiated that question. Thank you.
Mr. Donner.
The Brown Act and the issues usually are outside the meetings is when the Brown Act is violated on. And the whole idea is you have the people that are on the board of directors just can't be talking about card business on the outside, and or with the public outside of the meeting. There's the transparency. So I don't know the specific what happened. Obviously, just reading in the newspaper, but again, it's just don't participate in it.
If, in fact, a violation came up, and I've certainly done this at other meetings, I would interrupt and say, I think we've strayed. So that's answering the question. However, I have to say, in my experience with CARD, I honestly don't think the board has ever violated the Brown Act. There was an incident that a few people thought there was a violation, but it was pretty clear the item we were talking about was agendized and they misunderstood the item. I believe our staff does a great job making sure we follow Brown Act.
Thank you all for your thoughtful answers. It is now time for closing statements. The candidates have drawn for the order of closing statements. The order of the draw is Mr. Hughes, Mr. Lando, Mr. Worley, and Mr. Donner. We will begin with Mr. Hughes.
We have 1 minute to close, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and it's what you were saying earlier, one of the things we need to do is make sure we continue to work with our sister agencies in the community. And one of the big things that we did was in developing community park was have great community and I worked with Fred Davis when he was city manager, and we got a dedication of 15 acres, and we were able to negotiate with a person who had property next to the 13 acres, and it was 20 acres, and we negotiated with him and ended up with 30 acres where we swapped 6 acres of property that was available. And that's where Meeks and, of course, that storage area is right now. So that's why we are able to work in the community and with local agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Lando.
Well, I again want to thank the league, and I also want to thank my fellows up here, all of whom put themselves out to the community. I think that's a great thing to do. I think our community needs it. I believe that my experience as a city manager, as actually running the Feather River Park and Rec District for a while, I'm hiring Ann over there before I hired her at Chico, as first administrator and then a board member, puts me in a unique position to continue to help the board, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Mr. Worley.
Yes, I'd like to thank the league. I'd like to thank my fellows up here. And I'd also like to thank the public for taking an interest. There's a lot of people, more actually than I expected, coming out here. CARD, as I said in my opening statement, is an agency that sometimes doesn't get the views that the more contentious agencies get. And it's good for everybody in the community to know what we do, to be educated on what it is. I think I represent the community. I think I'm concerned, as I lived in Chico since 1971. I graduated from Chico High School. I'm a homeowner in the community and active as an active citizen. And I think I've, represented the views of the wider community and bring that to bear on the recreation sector of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Mr. Donner.
The last shall be first. I want you to vote for me because I'm new. I bring passion to the recreation. One thing that is, I think, very important, that you have directors that are very passionate about what they do, not just kind of every month kind of go through the budget and but not only the active participants, but somebody that hasn't been on the board before. All of these gentlemen at some point in time were never on the board. I asked for a chance to bring in a new, fresh ideas, more passion, more enthusiasm, something that nobody will ever tell me that I don't have enough of. Thank you.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Butte County, I want to thank Mr. Donnan, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Lando, and Mr. Worley for participating in our forum this evening. The audience may now applaud. We will now take a short break. The United States Representative District 1 Forum will begin at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back to the League of Women Voters Forum for the U.S. Representative District 1 election. If you're just joining us, my name is Mahaley Allen and my co-moderator is Claire Greene. With us this evening are two candidates seeking the office of the U.S. Representative District 1. They are the Republican candidate Doug LaMalfa and the Democratic candidate Jim Reed. The office for a U.S. Congressional Representative is a 2-year term without term limits, starting in January. The annual salary since 2009 is $174,000, as well as a member's representational allowance, which is made available to help members defray expenses resulting from 3 specific components of their duties. Those being the personal expenses component, the office expenses component, and the mailing expenses component. Members are not allowed to use their allowance to pay any personal or political campaigning expenses. California Congressional District 1 is approximately 28,000 plus square miles, with less than 1% of it urban and the remainder rural. California's 1st Congressional District is located in the northern portion of the state and includes the counties of Siskiyou, Modoc, Shasta, Lassen, Tehama, Butte, Plumas, Sierra, and Nevada, and parts of Glenn County. The candidates have drawn for order of opening and closing statements prior to this forum and are seated in the order of the opening draw. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for an opening statement, 2 minutes to respond to questions, and finish the evening with a 1-minute closing statement. Each question will be answered by both candidates. Because this forum is a nonpartisan setting for voters to hear all positions, any demonstrations of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions will be out of order. Any question directed at individual candidates will be discarded because the questions must be posed to all candidates. Our time with the candidates will be approximately 45 minutes. We will stop candidate questions after approximately 40 minutes in order to leave time for closing statements. At the end of this forum, we will thank all of our candidates with our applause. Please hold your applause until that time. Thank you, Mr. Reed and Mr. LaMalfa, for being with us this evening. We will begin with the opening statement from Mr. LaMalfa, followed by the opening statement from Mr. Reed. Mr. LaMalfa, please proceed with your opening statement.
Okay, well, thank you for having us here tonight, for the effort for the league, for this and all the other contests around Butte County at this great new facility you have here. So it's an honor to be able to serve you in the U.S. House, as I've done for about 3.5 years now, and try to move things in a direction that's going to be good for us here in the 1st District in Northern California and for all Americans. I focused on a few very, very important things I think that are key to our area. I'm a member of the Agricultural Committee and the Natural Resources Committee, and so what our opportunities here are in this part of the state are things that we used to do the best: agriculture, timber, mining. All of our resources are the things that are going to keep jobs here if we can keep the ability to utilize those assets. And so we'll continue to fight for that, because I would much rather see, for example, our forests managed instead of burned each summer, each fall. And the jobs so much potential we would have for jobs in our backyard, not exported to some other countries. So we have a lot to do, and I'm eager to take the task for another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Congress's approval rating is at the lowest it's ever been. And it's my view that there's 2 components of the problem. First, we have gridlock in Washington, D.C. The government should be working for the people. It's not doing that. So that's the first element. But the second element is the perception by the public that congressional representatives are working for themselves rather than for the people of the district. And quite frankly, there's 2 votes that Doug LaMalfa took during this last 3.5 years that I think epitomizes that. First, and I believe on both of these he should not have even voted because it was a benefit to his family. He voted on the ag subsidy bill that changed things, but in effect, in the long run will probably result in profit to his family 4 times of what it used to be. Secondly, he voted to reduce the restrictions on the Endangered Species Act so that more water could come down the Sacramento River, but the provision was his family could sell that water to Southern California like others.
Thank you. And now for our first question. This is a question from our audience. What is your opinion regarding the scientific evidence for the man-made nature of climate change and the steps needed to reduce its long-term negative effects? For the responses, we'll start with Mr. LaMalfa.
What's the time, please?
The time is 2 minutes.
2 minutes, thank you, okay. Well, first of all, I think nature plays a great role in what the climate is. It's so much bigger than what mankind is. Now, if you want to get down to the solutions for any sorts of pollution, it's going to come from the innovation that happens here in the United States because we have the freedom, we have the innovation, we have the know-how and the technology to continue to do things better. Cleaner burning engines in our automobiles and farm equipment and construction equipment, power plants, all those things, we get better on that as if we have a strong economy that is thriving. Now, when I see these ideas for cap and trade like we have coming out of Sacramento, they're trying to foist upon Washington, D.C. and all Americans, that's a job killer. That suppresses the economy, it suppresses innovation that is going to make us better off long term. It chases the jobs out of this country to places like China and other parts of, say, the Pacific Rim. Those jobs need to be here because you know what? We can do these things so much cleaner, so much better if we have the production here. And so at a time that they're trying to tear out hydroelectric facilities, which means a carbon-free, green, renewable power. And this coupled with a mandate in California that 50% of our power in just a few short years is going to have to come from a so-called renewable or green source. Hydro is that. So this chasing our tail of this climate change situation, when mankind has such a tiny percentage of what it affects on the overall carbon number of parts per billion, we're really hurting ourselves and we're hurting the ultimate solution that's going to come from all sorts of types of pollution. I'm more worried about the particulate stuff from burning forests and from things that are not keeping instead with the types of technology that we can innovate here. So climate change, I don't think the debate is settled because they try and point to, 97% of scientists say this. Who's scientists? Really, it's probably about a third agree, a third disagree, and a third are still trying to get answers. So the debate is not settled.
Thank you. Mr. Reed?
I would certainly dispute that. I think the science is very clear. 98% of the scientists have no doubt, and the 2% that don't are paid by petroleum companies. I graduated from Berkeley in electrical engineering. I have a background where we rely on science. It's time that we recognize that we have a very serious problem and we take action immediately. We are lucky to be living in the state of California where we are taking action to try to solve the problem of global warming. And I dispute Mr. LaMalfa's view that doing that is a job killer. We require the innovation to solve this problem. That actually will grow jobs, and I think we're seeing that in California, and it'll continue if we expand our programs in California across the country. The fact of the matter is, if we allow our temperatures to raise even another ½ degree, we are in serious trouble. And so the point is we have to take action now. We can't debate it any longer. If we continue to debate it and worry about whether it's going to have some minor effect on the economy, we're going to let the one chance we have to solve the problem get away from us. We need to take action now.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll turn to the press, starting with Mr. Little from the Chico Enterprise Record. And for our responses, we'll start with Mr. Reed.
So it increasingly appears the state will need federal help in order to build two big projects, the twin tunnels and high-speed rail. And that probably won't get done without a push from California's congressional delegation. If you were sitting in that chair, would you support those two projects?
Well, first of all, starting with the twin tunnels, absolutely not. Our Northern California water needs to remain in Northern California for our benefit. If there's some excess, I don't have a problem sending it to Southern California, but those twin tunnels are meant to send water that we can't afford to give without endangering our species and ruining our environment. So I can guarantee I would vote against any sort of funding that would help create those twin tunnels. Now, with respect to the bullet train, I take a little bit different view. First of all, I love the idea of a bullet train. I love the fact that it will be great for not only the economy but the environment. A train between San Francisco and Los Angeles would be just a wonderful thing. I've ridden trains in Europe. It's a great thing. Now, having said that, I have a problem with the planned bullet train we have here in California. It was not designed by engineers. It was designed by politicians. So what you have, instead of a train that goes from San Francisco to Los Angeles, which would easily compete with Southwest Airlines or whatever airline you might choose, and not have to stand in those long lines for baggage and so on, the problem is because it required enough votes from various places along the line, there's like 16 stops between San Francisco and LA, and 16 stops makes it no longer a bullet train. So I know Mr. LaBalfa voted to not send any federal money for the bullet train. That was the wrong approach. The right approach would have made sure that we got that money for the bullet train, but then put restrictions on it. Get rid of a number of those stops so it really is effective as a bullet train. Yes, I would support the bullet train with some modification.
Thank you. Mr. LaMalfa?
Absolutely not to the bullet train, and the tunnels are of no benefit to Northern California, okay? So on the water side of the issue, every piece of legislation I've backed or tried to run myself has had a component in it to protect Northern California's water rights first. If it's going to rain on us, if it's going to snow on us, then we need to have the first right, first utilization for it. Now, in most times, in good years, we do have a water that excess that we can share. That's why the CVP and the State Water Project exist. But right of first refusal in Northern California is essential, right in our backyard. That said, with the tunnels in place, I'm afraid that they would be that proverbial giant sucking sound to go to Southern California without restrictions. Now, instead of building those to draw it out, why aren't we building the supply to make it where we have enough water for all purposes, for domestic use in your homes, for industrial use, for agriculture, and even the environmental water, whose numbers keep increasing in need and demand. For building sites reservoir, you know, our colleagues earlier on the assembly side, Assemblyman Gallagher, he's been a big champion of that. I'm trying to be that champion at the federal level too. We need to quit talking about it and get it built. That'd be almost 2 million more acre feet. But also the water we're wasting by not allowing Shasta, Oroville, and Folsom to fill this year when they started dumping water in March through May. We'd have 600,000 more acre feet if they allowed those lakes to fill. And over with Sites Reservoir, even during the drought period, we'd have about over 4 years, approximately 800,000 acre feet we would have saved. On the bullet train, I fought that since day one when in the state Senate after that thing passed. They don't have a plan. It's grown from what you saw as voters a few years ago, a $33 billion project, to one they admit at a time there as $100 billion. They only have $13 billion worth of funding they can even point to. They're still anywhere from 50 to 80 billion short. I don't care how many stops it makes in the valley. It's not going to pay for itself, and normal people won't be able to afford to use it.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll turn to Ms. Cooper from the Chico News and Review, and our first response will be from Mr. LaMalfa.
Our region is lacking in adequate options in women's health care, and the average citizen makes just about $23,000 a year. Planned Parenthood has increasingly become a source for women and men seeking birth control, and Republicans in Washington voted to defund it. I'm curious what your stance is, and if Planned Parenthood were taken away, where would your constituents go for essential family planning options?
Well, the issue here is that Planned Parenthood is primarily an abortion provider and also has been known to be the seller of baby parts. We've seen that. We've seen those videos. We've seen that they are caught red-handed doing that. So yes, I will continue to vote to defund them and find alternative means for people to seek any type of health care they need. And those means are here. Planned Parenthood does not provide all the services they claim to. They a lot of times are referring mammograms and other things important to women to other areas. In the meantime, they're making much profit from the abortion industry. So I'm a strong pro-life advocate. I think the options for health care are out there, and so for women, for men, for reproductive, for any other type of health care, let's keep making our clinics with what they need to be able to handle these issues, handle all that type of health care options that women need and men need with a good running program. Obamacare is not that program, but indeed, let's have the dollars flow where they need to be through a wisely managed health system that Obamacare is not. Indeed, we have a problem that when the original plan was 15% of Americans weren't insured, and Obamacare came along and changed it basically for everybody. 85% of Americans that were more or less fairly happy with their plan, with their doctor, you know, they no longer have to keep their doctor as promised. They didn't get to keep their plan, and their prices did not go down $2,500 per family. Instead, they saw increases, so it's made it hard for everybody's health care. If we can remove that specter from above the whole healthcare industry, people are going to have options to seek whatever type they do need at local clinics as well as our hospitals, and keep the doctors in the business. But Planned Parenthood, by and large, is not that option. I'll continue to work to defund and stop their atrocities that they commit.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
So Planned Parenthood commits no atrocities. There's just this big lie, and you hear it over and over again. First of all, by law, no federal funding can go to Planned Parenthood for abortions. That is completely off the table. It's a talking point people make because they find some political benefit in doing it. It's just not an issue. So that should be off the table. The second thing he talks about as far as atrocities is selling body parts for a profit. That, first of all, Planned Parenthood is a nonprofit. So they're not selling them for a profit. And as a matter of fact, and this goes back to denying science again, we have some serious diseases that I believe will eventually be cured by stem cell research and stem cell therapy, and there has to be material to do that research, and so it's the wrong to criticize Planned Parenthood for helping actually cure a disease. Now, Doug talks about Obamacare and how it's not working. Well, Obamacare hasn't worked very well in those states that didn't like Obamacare. But California is one of the states that did, and it's working tremendously well in California. We have so many more people covered by their health insurance. When I ask people, what is it you don't like about Obamacare? Is it that people who have pre-existing conditions now can get insurance? Oh, no, that's not it. Is it that there used to be caps? You at a certain price or a certain amount of value for the year or for a total time, you don't get any more medical care. Eliminating that cap, is that what you don't like about Obamacare? No. People like Obamacare. Again, it's just a political issue.
Thank you. Our next question is a league question. Do you regard current immigration policies to be in need of reform? And if so, what changes would you support? We'll start with Mr. Reed.
Yeah, obviously we need immigration reform, in a number of different ways. Obviously, this is a big issue in the presidential race. We do need to be better at monitoring people coming into the United States on visas and overstaying their way. There is some people coming across the border that shouldn't. We need to work harder on that. But having said that, we have over 11 million people in our country, good people, hardworking people, people that are contributing to our economy that are undocumented. And this talk about sending them out of the country would be absolutely devastating to our economy, but more than that, it would be such a terrible thing for these families that are in fact true Americans. So, what do we do about that? Certainly, deporting and letting a few back in is not even a viable alternative. My feeling is if they have violated the law by coming into the country or overstaying their visa, they should pay a fine for doing that. If they've been involved in any serious criminal activity, they should be deported. But the rest, which is the vast majority of these 11 million people, need to have a way to become a long-term part of our society, in fact, citizens. So they need to go through a process. They need to do everything that everybody else needs to do to become a citizen, but we need to find that process to do it. And I'm going to end it at that.
Thank you, Mr. LaMalfa.
Can you phrase the question, please?
Let me find it. Do you regard current immigration policies to be in need of reform? And if so, what changes would you support?
Well, first of all, there's a reason why it's called illegal immigration, because there's already laws on the books about how we are to treat our border, what our immigration policy is, who comes in, who goes out, all that. So the bottom line is if we enforce the laws that are in place to where only legal immigration is happening, we have an obligation in this country to provide for its security, for its people, and a part of that is securing our borders. And so I'm sure most of the audience here tonight probably locked their house when you left. You probably locked your car. And so why can't we have a lock on the gate of the country that we open as we see fit to allow people to immigrate or applying for citizenship, work permits, tourist visas, student visas? We're a welcoming country. We just ask you do it by our rules. And so the federal government has been ineffective for so many years, or it hasn't had the will to enforce immigration laws that are already in place. If there's refinement needed to them, we can do that, but there isn't the atmosphere, especially under President Obama, to try and have a real productive discussion on that, on what refinements would be needed. So we control our borders first, and then we work on what type of work programs, what number of people do we need to come in that would like to come work in this country with documents. We need them to have documents. And that actually is better for the immigrant, it's better for the employer, it makes just complete sense. But in the politics of it, where the Democrats really are seeking to have more new voters, they want to make more new citizens, to have more voters and more people dependent on their programs, I think that is really harmful to our nation and even to the immigrants themselves, because they're living in this gray area that is not helpful to them or their families, and especially is only helpful to the coyotes that take advantage of them as they come across the border to this country and either leave their families behind or have unspeakable things done to those family members as they pay those coyotes to bring them across the border. So we need to revamp along the lines of enforcing the laws we have.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the audience. What congressional efforts to reduce gun violence do you support? We'll start with Mr. LaMalfa.
Gun violence is caused by people that are not properly being incarcerated. It isn't caused by people that are the law-abiding that are the targets of so much of this gun legislation, especially as we've seen in California with, I think, at least 7 new bills that were passed this year, and then another one on the ballot in Prop 63, which I oppose. You don't make gun-free zones, safety zones. Those are the most unsafe areas, and those are the ones where most of these shootings happen by people that are here perhaps illegally, or folks that have already skirted the law on illegally obtaining guns, not through a process that law-abiding citizens do. So again, the idea that we need more legislation to further curb the rights for people to protect themselves, to buy ammunition, to buy the gun of their choice, is not going to do anything to solve any of the so-called gun violence. These are the buzzwords that are used these days, and the Democrats even had like a 3-day sit-in on the House floor trying to force a vote on gun bills that weren't even written yet, and they did actually get a vote in a committee on an amendment on that. Guess what? In the process there, their bill, their amendment lost in committee. So, you know, this is a great talking point, it's a great dividing point on this, but gun control, more of this legislation just denies the ability of private citizens, of all Americans to have what they need. And this is something women especially should pay attention to, because having the ability to keep a weapon is an equalizer for them. And I see more and more women taking part of becoming educated and becoming gun owners and going out and doing the practices at the gun range and such that is good for them to be able to protect their family and themselves in a vulnerable situation. So more freedom means more safety for individuals.
Thank you. Mr. Reed?
So these mass shootings that we have, it's almost monthly now, it's become just so intolerable that something has to be done. But before I answer the question, I've got to tell you that I actually am a Second Amendment guy. I lived in Fall River Mills, which is eastern Shasta County out in the boonies, for years and years. If somebody had attempted to break into my house while I was there and I called 911, it'd be at least an hour before the sheriff would arrive. And so I'm not a good shot, but I had a shotgun, and it's my first line of defense. Now, having said that, we can't just let anybody who wants a gun use a gun. There are people that should not have access to guns. And California has actually done a pretty good job here, and some of the things that they're now trying to extend the controls, I don't even approve. But certainly, background checks are the critical thing. And it needs to be universal. If somebody can buy a gun in some other state and bring it into California, it doesn't do us any good if we've been background checking everybody else. So it needs to be universal. Waiting periods, I think, are important so that we can verify that these are not people with mental issues or violent backgrounds that we really can't tolerate having guns. The final thing, and going now finally back to the issue of these mass shootings, and I've evolved on this issue. I think assault weapons need to be completely outlawed. At one time, I viewed the possibility of having to defend yourself from somebody with an assault weapon, and you should have at least the equal ability to defend yourself, but that just doesn't happen. So the time has come to say enough of these mass shootings. We've got to just completely go back to the ban on assault weapons.
Thank you. We'll now take a question from Ms. Cooper of the Chico News and Review, and we'll start with Mr. Reed.
In 2013, during the tail end of the Great Recession, the House of Representatives voted to cut federal food stamps to struggling American families by $20 billion. Given the level of poverty in the North State, is that a justifiable position to take? Why or why not?
Well, absolutely not. And this is what I alluded to in my opening statement, that I believe that Doug LaMalfa should not have even been voting on that bill. The bill was a combination of things. The agricultural subsidies, and Mr. LaMalfa's family are rice farmers, received over $5 million in rice subsidies over the years before this bill was passed. It changed things. The bill changed things from an agricultural subsidy standpoint, and it goes now, instead of a direct subsidy, to a price guarantee. but the price guarantees were prices fixed when the prices were at their absolute highest. And so what will happen over time is the prices of these commodities will come down to normal levels. And it's been estimated that the effect of the price guarantees could be as much as increasing those ag subsidies by 4 times. Now, the problem I have with Mr. LaMalfa's vote isn't so much well, he shouldn't have voted because his family directly will profit by that law. But the really difficult part, finally going to your answer, is part of that bill was looking at farms, the food stamp program, which is a great program that feeds the hungry and helps our smaller farmers because they are the ones supplying the benefits. And Mr. LaMalfa wanted to completely eliminate it or reduce it to a very, very low level. This was absolutely the wrong thing to do. In the recession in 2008, sure, the numbers grew like mad because people were poor during the recession. But those numbers have come back under control. That's a program we absolutely need, and any cuts was a mistake.
Thank you. Mr. LaMalfa?
Well, Mr. Reedy got several things wrong on that. First of all, the Farm Bill, which you'll know, is 80% of the Farm Bill is the SNAP program, also known as food stamps. 20% of the Farm Bill is the farm part of the Farm Bill. And so with that Farm Bill, the farm program actually took the largest hit of any government program or agency in the farm portion of anything passed during that timeline. Bigger hit than anything in defense, anything in health, anything in any other area. And on the food stamp side, I supported, because I think it's important for the people that are at that struggling level of income, that the program be sustained. What I sought was that we have revisions to how some of the eligibility works so there's more accountability. Whereas in the state of California, there's a home heating oil program, which if you qualify for home heating oil, and they pay you $1 worth, it allows you to pull down a whole bunch of money from the food stamp program instead of having a process where it's adjudicated, where the eligibility is determined of we should actually receive that benefit. Also, we were going after fraud, and I think most people you talk to on the street, things we were seeking is that if you're going to receive the benefit, you should also be either, if you're a person with no dependents, you should be either seeking a job, education, or doing community work, as well as a provision for drug testing, which everybody wants when you talk to them on the street. So I support the program, but like any program, it needs to be accountable to the public that pays for it. And if the Obama economy is rebounding so greatly, why wouldn't we see it downsize a little bit as well? On the Farm Bill portion, that's a complete misnomer that it'll increase in cost. Actually, it has outperformed the reduced cost that it was expected to by an additional $18 billion on top of the reductions in price already. What you have is farmers are paying into an insurance program that just makes the baseline for them and is actually going to ratchet down over time. So you're completely off base.
Thank you. And now for a question from Mr. Little from the Chico Enterprise Record, and we'll start with Mr. LaMalfa.
So on social media, we asked our readers what they wanted to talk to you about and ask you about tonight.
I saw that today.
And it was about farm subsidies.
Oh, good.
But you guys managed to get to it on a question about food stamps, so we'll skip to the next one. Yeah. So you both like to talk about congressional gridlock, but what's your solution to it? And don't waste the 2 minutes talking about the problem, because we all know what the problem is. But if you're sitting in Congress, what's your solution to breaking gridlock?
Okay. Just to touch on that farm program a little bit is that my first vote I ever got to take in Congress on the farm bill was to decrease it, was to take away a benefit that affects everybody that's in that farm program crop, okay? So me included. So me recusing myself, I guess attorneys should be recusing themselves from tort reform bills and a lot of other stuff that happens. So with that, with gridlock, yeah, you know, it appears bad on the outside, but these are on the hard philosophical issues that are the ideology that when you run for office say, hey, you know, I'm not for more taxes or more growth of government. So do you compromise on a bill that's going to raise taxes or grow government? Well, not very often, but that said, on the legislation that we're actually getting done around here that you've seen right in our backyard. I work with Mr. Garamendi on important flood control projects like in Hamilton City, Sites Reservoir, other flood control in South Butte County that also helps with Sutter County. I partnered up even with Jared Huffman on issues on the Plant Act, we call it, on the on marijuana grows on public lands, which are such an environmental problem. So, you know, I've been talking to Loretta Sanchez, candidate for U.S. Senate, on things that we can agree on with timber. So there's, gridlock is there because people have deep-seated reasons why they run for office, but also, you know, I'm also very frustrated that we work hard to pass good bills out of the House of Representatives, send them over to the Senate, they get some of them out, but then you send them down to 1600 Pennsylvania, and they get vetoed. Any kind of reform to Obamacare, which is, prices are up $3,700 per family instead of going down $2,500 per family, so I don't know how you call that a success. We want to have it work for people. So the gridlock, to me, appears to be at 1600 Pennsylvania, where the president won't even come up and talk to us, and we can hardly get a negotiation with our speaker or anybody else on things that we should be able to work out. So, you know, gridlock is frustrating for all of us, as I'm here to get things done as well.
Thank you. Mr. Reed?
Before I talk about gridlock, I've got to just mention one more thing about the farm subsidies. If you believe that Doug LaMalfa did not want to eliminate the food stamp program, you can go to a YouTube of his standing on the House floor arguing that churches should be handling that, not the government. Furthermore, when he says he wanted to take away farm subsidies, that's true because he wanted to replace it with price guarantees. You can see an interview with an LA Times reporter who will say, once prices get to their traditional level, the commodities farmers will be receiving 4 times what they received under the old program. Now, with respect to gridlock, and that's an extremely important subject, if you go to my website, jimreed2016.com, you'll see that what I've promised to do in the first 100 days in office is to meet with as many congressional representatives as possible, both Republican, Democrat, and independents, to try to develop a relationship to work together on making our government work. I was at a primary event with Doug, it was the Farm Bureau in Oroville, and somebody asked Doug, what do you want to do about, or what should you do about gridlock? And his answer was, I'm not going to do anything about gridlock unless a Republican president is elected. That's the difference between me and Doug. I don't care who it is that's president of the United States. I will work hard to make sure our government is working for the people of this district, and I will work across party lines to make that happen. To me, it's unpardonable for our government to do nothing when we have so many serious problems that need to be solved.
Thank you. Our next question is a league question. What, if anything, does the U.S. need to do in order to address national security and terrorism? And we'll start with Mr. Reed.
Well, first of all, I'm going to answer something a little bit different than what you asked because I need to get this in. One of the main things I think we need to do in our country is make a massive investment in improving and repairing our infrastructure. The question is, and I think both Republicans and Democrats understand that's important, the problem is, where does the money come from? Because the Army Corps of Engineers has estimated it would cost $4 trillion to do what we need to do, and the national debt's in the $19 trillion mark, so it's a huge number. Finally getting to your question, one of my solutions, and there's probably going to have to be several, but how do you come up with $4 trillion to fix our infrastructure? One of the things we must do is change the way our military works. Go back to the old system, the system of self-sufficiency. Soldiers used to cook for soldiers. Soldiers used to do their own laundry. Soldiers were their own police officers, firemen, repaired their own vehicles and airplanes. It doesn't happen that way anymore. Independent contractors do that at a much higher cost. And you know something? It's not only that it's a very inefficient way of doing things, but it's mistreating our veterans. In the old days, our veterans would come out of the military with a marketable skill. No longer. The point here is, I hear people talking about our military needs to, we need to spend more on our military. Well, the fact of the matter is our defense budget is bigger than the next 6 biggest spenders on defense combined. We are doing something wrong. We are doing something inefficiently, and we can do what we need to do from a military standpoint by being more efficient, and the primary way is going back to the old system.
Thank you, Mr. LaMalfa.
Repeat the question, please.
Yes, absolutely. What, if anything, does the U.S. need to do in order to address national security and terrorism?
Okay. Well, we had that partly that discussion on enforcing and protecting our borders. If you do that well, you're going to have a pretty darn good security situation. But we have a lot of interest around the world, too, with our allies, Europe, Japan, Israel, a few others that we need to have good relationships with, and they also need to have confidence that we're going to be there for them. When we downsize our military, we're going to have the lowest Navy fleet since before World War II numbers, before too much longer. And the fleet we have, our submarines, they're going to need to be replaced starting in the mid-2020s. The nuclear triad, which is a deterrent, you know, strength by force, strength in the numbers of our military. It's a good deterrent when we have this. We don't ever want to use those, but if they get a hint of weakness by us, China is already doing a lot of mayhem in the South China Sea. So we need to be ready with a strong military. Now, what I would like to see happen much more of is accountability on the prices that we pay for this equipment. You know, the contractors sometimes are taking advantage of this. This F-35 program needs a lot of work. I don't know if that's going to be the right aircraft going forward or not. We're fought to keep Beale going down here because we need those spy aircraft to be available to us and not completely rely on drones and satellites. It needs to be a multifaceted issue. So we have to be really careful when we talk about the military spending, because we're not even getting all the equipment our soldiers on the front line need. They're having to borrow parts off of wrecked equipment or museum equipment to keep planes in there. They need the time. They need the practice with flying the aircraft, with target practice. They need that, and we've been seeing that cut short in the direction that the president has been going. You know, we're not seeing this peace dividend because they're still taking advantage in the Middle East, being aggressive. This terrible Iran deal we saw is going to make security for Israel and our other allies we do get along with, Saudi Arabia and others. The turmoil that's causing is just horrendous, and the unpredictability, I shudder for that.
Thank you. And now for an audience question. What is your stance on hydraulic fracturing or fracking as a means for oil and gas extraction? We'll start with Mr. LaMalfa.
Hydraulic fracturing has been our miraculous tool to help us have the lowest cost energy on natural gas we've seen in many, many years. Now, as that technology improves, they're using less water and they're using less of the cocktail they use as part of that process. So you're enjoying low natural gas prices and lower fuel prices because of that. It's helping make America energy independent if we continue to be able to develop these sources in this country instead of buying it from those Middle Eastern countries and South American countries that don't like us, that can jack the price up on us any time. So I always go back to the adage there, if you like imported oil, you'll love imported food, which is why we need to have a strong ag economy in this country. It runs largely on energy, as just about everything. Energy costs affect everybody. The products you buy, the manufacturing that we still have left in this country, we need to re-import into this country, bring these dollars back home, these jobs back home. So much of it is based on a strong energy economy and energy prices. Germany was even interested, for a time at least, in investing in the U.S. with some of their manufacturing plants because the cost of energy for a time was so low with the development of much more natural gas. So we can always improve and do things better. They're improving the systems by which they do hydraulic fracturing using less water, which the amount of water is really hyped on that, okay? You know, when they say 1 million gallons, well, I don't know how many gallons there's in an Olympic swimming pool, but somewhere around there. And so when you're doing that process, the amount of water you're using is a fraction compared to the benefit you're receiving from low-cost energy produced for American jobs in this country and the stability you get from that instead of relying on foreign ones. So I think We need to continue to do that, but as we always do in this country, find better ways to do it all the time. So the concerns around fracturing are being even improved upon, even though a lot of them are misnomers as well.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
So our most precious natural resource in the North State is our water. Our water in the aquifers as well as the surface water. And we've repeatedly seen that where there's fracking, there's accidents, and the water is ruined. I commend the voters of Butte County for voting to have no fracking in Butte County. I think it was a great thing. I think we need to do that in every county in the North State. We can't risk ruining our most precious natural resource. Now, I do believe that there are places where fracking can be done. Bakersfield is a good example where they've already ruined their water. I don't think it's coming back. The quality of their water is not coming back for hundreds of years because of that. I wouldn't advocate forcing Kern County to stop fracking at this point in time. But wherever there's a risk of ruining your most precious resource, fracking should be banned. Now, in addition to that, we are moving towards cleaner energy. You've noticed the price of gasoline is precipitously down over the last few years. That's because we're using less petroleum. And the trend is we are not going to need coal and gas like we used to 10, 15 years ago. So the need to do fracking to a great extent has disappeared.
Thank you. In order to adjourn on time, this will be our last question. It's going to come from the League. The political climate in Washington, D.C. has been extremely partisan in recent years. In that kind of atmosphere, what would you do to get things done well in office? We'll start with Mr. Reed.
Well, I've already more or less answered that in a previous question. I will work with both sides of the aisle and try to meet with as many representatives of both parties as I can right in the first 100 days so that we will start making this government work. I think one thing that's really important is it's important for the people in your district to realize that you are working for them and not for yourself. And I mentioned this in my opening statement, but one of the big criticisms I have of Doug LaMalfa's voting record is this water bill. It's actually, I'll give it to you, it's in the 113th Congress. It's H.R. 5781. This is in the middle of the drought. 2014, farmers were complaining they weren't getting enough water, and the House of Representatives, and Doug LaMalfa was actually a sponsor of this bill, voted to allow the reduction of the restrictions on the Endangered Species Act so that more water could get to the farmers. Now, I'm sure some people think that's a great idea, some people don't, but here's the kicker. In that bill, there was a specific provision that allowed superior water right owners, the LaMalfa family, people who had what they call the pre-1914 water rights, to take that additional water they were going to be allocated under this bill and sell it to Southern California so that they could make a big profit. We cannot afford in the North State to allow our endangered species to be sacrificed to get water to the South State and just allow our farmers to make a profit not on farming but on selling water.
Thank you. Mr. LaMalfa?
Well, a lot of things on that particular question there. First of all, I've supported water legislation that provides for building more storage, and it's been bipartisan legislation. Mr. Costa there from the Central Valley is a Democrat who supports it. So we've had some success with bipartisan support, which is what you're talking about with Washington gridlock. So it's based mainly, and then the assertion Mr. Reed made a while ago on that statement at Oroville Farm Bureau. I didn't say that the president, we can't do anything until we get a new president. It's very difficult with this president, and we've made every effort in the House of Representatives to send him legislation. When he doesn't talk to us about it, I think, again, the gridlock is coming from 1600 Pennsylvania. I'm willing to work with anybody, anytime on something that makes sense. So that said, and he keeps wanting to point to how my family benefits. Well, we're just one of many, many farmers across California and across the country that are in the same soup as everybody else on whether it's the farm bill or water storage and water issues. So when we want to build and expand our water supply, it benefits everybody, not just agriculture, not just water rights holders, but everybody. It expands the pie. If we had these reservoirs and we'd actually fill the reservoirs we'd have, we'd have had last year 1.6 million more acre feet had we filled our reservoirs with available water. And so you can't have it both ways, Mr. Reed, on the idea that we're going to have more water for endangered species and that's going to somehow mean more for farmers, because they're taking it away from farmers to do dubious things of releasing cold water in the fall. They believe that's going to help, or the hundreds of millions of hundreds of thousands of acre feet that are getting out through the delta instead of being stopped for the benefit. I mean, what if we did something about the striped bass that are eating all the smolts of salmon that are coming down instead of just trying to throw water at it? So we have an issue where gridlock can be overcome by people with common bonds getting together and doing that. So I'm looking for colleagues on both sides of the aisle in both House and Senate to get things done, but the rhetoric we're hearing here tonight, unfortunately, does not move that, and it's not even true.
Thank you for your thoughtful answers. It is now time for your 1-minute closing statements. We will start with Mr. Reed.
So I guess there's some major differences, as you could see, between my positions and Doug LaMalfa's positions. But I think in summary, the one thing that I hope you understand is that I want our federal government to succeed. I want our federal government to work for the people. I want to go back to Washington, D.C. to make our government better. On the other hand, Doug LaMalfa voted to shut down the government. I think he wanted to see the government fail. Even after 13 days of the government shutdown, when most of the people that voted against shutting it down finally came to their senses and voted to open it, Doug voted against even reopening it. So, and now that that's passed, he's vowed to gridlock the country if it's not Donald Trump as our next president. That's not the way we should be treating our country, and that's not the kind of congressman that we need in the North State.
Thank you. Mr. LaMalfa, your 1-minute closing statement.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm reminded of Ronald Reagan in 1980 when he said, "Well, there you go again, Jimmy," but I won't call you Jimmy, sir. In that sense that, you know, you're mischaracterizing what I'm about. The idea of shutting down the government isn't productive. At that point, it was like Obamacare was impending. It was failing. We could see it was going to fail. And so we made a presentation to the people of this country that we're here to protect you from a failing healthcare idea. The president is what shut down the country. So that all said, we're here to make it work. We're here to make the government work for the people. I'm not back there to make the government work for the government, which is, I think, a lot of the times what the philosophy ends up being on the other side of the aisle. The government is not working for the people. We end up working for it. We can't get answers out of it. Our veterans are suffering, trying to get answers with the benefits they're entitled to that we promised them, and yet they have to go chasing their tails all the time to get answers for that. Our office is there to help them do that. We have 3 offices that are there to help to do that up and down the North State in this district, that we put the service of the people first, not the government. We make the government work for the people. I would thank you for your consideration of your vote.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Butte County, I want to thank the candidates, Mr. LaMalfa and Mr. Reed, for participating in our forum this evening. The audience may now applaud. Thank you to our media participants, our timekeepers, our question sorters, and our question gatherers, and thank you to all of you for being an attentive audience and asking thoughtful questions. Please go to www.votersedge.org to learn more about the candidates and the measures. Voters Edge of California is a league-sponsored website which offers every candidate in every race in the state a free web page to post their candidacy. Thank you to all our candidates who have posted on Voters Edge. And please remember to vote on Tuesday, November 8th, or earlier if you have a mail-in ballot. Thank you.